Dad and daughter went camping in the desert and never returned home. 8 years later, when her pink backpack was dug up from deep underground, the contents inside were completely impossible. The detail that left everyone speechless wasn't the impossible burial depth. It was that her homework was still inside, perfectly preserved, dated the exact day they vanished 8 years ago. But let me start from the beginning, because this story will challenge everything you think you know about time, space, and what's possible in our world. It was March 15th, 2016, when 34-year-old David Chen made a promise that would change everything. His 7-year-old daughter Emma had been begging for months to go on a real camping adventure, just the two of them. David, a software engineer from Las Vegas, had been working overtime to save up for this trip. Emma's mother had passed away 2 years earlier, and David knew these father-daughter moments were precious. Emma was the kind of child who lit up every room she entered. Her teachers described her as curious, kind, and incredibly organized for her age. She had this bright pink backpack, a gift from her grandmother, that she carried everywhere. Inside, she kept her homework, her favorite colored pencils, a small notebook where she wrote stories, and a photo of her mom. The morning of March 16th, David loaded their SUV with camping gear. Emma bounced excitedly in the back seat, clutching her pink backpack. Their destination was a remote area of the Mojave Desert, about 2 hours from Las Vegas. David had chosen this spot because it was known for its stunning night skies, perfect for the stargazing Emma loved. The campsite was beautiful but isolated. Rolling sand dunes stretched in every direction, broken only by scattered Joshua trees and rocky outcroppings. The nearest highway was 15 miles away. David set up their tent while Emma explored the immediate area, never straying far from their campsite. That evening, they cooked hot dogs over their campfire, and Emma worked on her math homework by flashlight. She was determined to finish it before bedtime, telling her dad she didn't want to fall behind in school. David smiled, watching his daughter's dedication. She carefully placed her completed homework back in her pink backpack and zipped it shut. They spent hours looking at the stars through David's telescope. Emma was fascinated by the constellations, asking endless questions about space and the universe. Around 10 p.m., they crawled into their tent, exhausted but happy. The next morning, David's alarm never went off. When the pair failed to return home by March 18th as planned, Emma's grandmother called the police. A massive search operation began immediately. The authorities found their campsite exactly as it should be. Tent still standing, camping gear neatly arranged, SUV parked nearby with keys in David's pocket. But David and Emma were simply gone. Search teams scoured thousands of acres of desert. Helicopters flew grid patterns overhead while ground teams checked every ravine, every cave, every possible hiding spot. Bloodhounds lost the scent just 50 feet from the campsite, as if the pair had simply vanished into thin air. The investigation revealed no signs of struggle, no evidence of foul play, and no logical explanation for their disappearance. David's phone showed no outgoing calls after 9:30 p.m. on March 16th. His bank accounts remained untouched. There were no strange vehicles in the area, no suspicious individuals reported by other campers. Days turned into weeks, weeks into months. The case grew cold. Emma's grandmother never stopped believing they would be found. She kept Emma's room exactly as it was, with the little girl's drawings still taped to the walls and her second favorite stuffed animal waiting on the bed. The pink backpack's twin, Emma had insisted on having 2 identical ones, sat empty on her desk. But here's where our story takes its first impossible turn. Fast forward to October 12th, 2024. Tom Rodriguez, an experienced desert hiker from Phoenix, was exploring a remote section of the Mojave Desert about 12 miles from the original Chen campsite. Tom was using a metal detector, hoping to find old mining artifacts in the area. Around 2 p.m., his detector began beeping frantically over what looked like an ordinary sand dune. The signals were strong, indicating something substantial buried beneath. Tom began digging, expecting to find an old can or piece of mining equipment. 3 feet down, his shovel hit something soft. 4 feet down, he saw a flash of bright pink. 5 feet down, Tom's hands were shaking as he carefully brushed sand away from what was unmistakably a child's backpack. 6 feet down, he pulled out Emma Chen's pink backpack, perfectly intact after 8 years buried in desert sand. Tom immediately called the police. Within hours, the desert was swarming with investigators, forensics teams, and reporters. The backpack was carefully transported to the lab for analysis. But the real shock was just beginning. When forensics specialists opened the backpack under controlled conditions, they found something that should have been impossible. Every item inside was perfectly preserved. Not just intact, but as fresh as the day it was placed there. Emma's math homework, completed the night she vanished, looked like it had been finished minutes ago. The pencil marks were sharp and clear. The paper showed no signs of age, moisture damage, or deterioration. Even more disturbing, the homework was dated March 16, 2016, the exact day the pair disappeared. Her colored pencils were still sharp. Her small notebook showed no water damage despite being buried in desert sand for 8 years. The photo of her mother was pristine, colors vibrant, edges crisp. But wait, there was something else in the backpack that hadn't been there before. Investigators found a small, handwritten note that Emma's family swore had never existed. Written in Emma's distinctive 7-year-old handwriting, it simply said, "We're safe. We're waiting." The stars showed us the way. How could a note written by a missing child end up in her backpack, buried 6 feet underground in desert sand? Dr. Sarah Mitchell, a forensics expert with 20 years of experience, was assigned to analyze the backpack and its contents. Her preliminary report raised more questions than answers. "The preservation is impossible," Dr. Mitchell stated in her report. "Paper exposed to desert conditions, even when protected, should show significant deterioration after 8 years. These items appear to have been protected by some unknown preservation method. The ink analysis proved the homework and note were written with the same pencils found in the backpack. The paper dated back to 2016 based on manufacturing markers. Yet everything looked brand new. Carbon dating of the backpack material itself showed something even stranger. The fabric appeared to be 8 years old, matching the timeline of the disappearance. But the contents seemed to exist in a different temporal state altogether. The burial site presented its own mysteries. Soil analysis showed the sand had been undisturbed for decades, except for the 6-foot-deep hole where the backpack was found. There were no tool marks, no evidence of excavation, no signs that anyone had dug this hole manually. Geologists couldn't explain how a backpack could end up 6 feet underground without leaving traces of burial. The sand above it had naturally settled and compacted over years, yet there was no evidence of the massive displacement that should have occurred during the burial process. Local weather records showed no sandstorms or natural events that could have buried an object so deeply. The mathematical probability of natural sand movement creating this scenario was virtually zero. The investigation expanded. Ground-penetrating radar was used to scan the surrounding area for additional anomalies. The search revealed something extraordinary. 12 feet away from the backpack burial site, radar detected two human-sized shapes buried approximately 8 feet underground. The shapes were perfectly preserved in the sand, maintaining human form and proportion despite being buried for years. The excavation of these sites became a media sensation. News crews from around the world descended on the remote desert location. The FBI took over the investigation from local authorities. On October 20th, 2024, excavation began. 8 feet down, they found them. David and Emma Chen, perfectly preserved as if they had simply lain down to sleep moments ago. Their bodies showed no signs of decomposition, no evidence of trauma or struggle. They appeared to be sleeping peacefully. Emma was still wearing her camping clothes from that night in 2016. David's watch had stopped at 11:43 p.m. on March 16, 2016. They were positioned side by side, Emma's small hand resting in her father's protective grasp. But here's the detail that shattered every expert's understanding of the case. Both David and Emma were warm to the touch. Their core body temperature registered 98.6 degrees Fahrenheit. Medically impossible for remains buried in desert sand for 8 years, yet undeniably real. Dr. Amanda Foster, the chief medical examiner, conducted the most thorough examination of her career. Her findings defied medical science. Both subjects exhibit signs of recent sleep rather than death, her report stated. Brain activity monitors show patterns consistent with deep REM sleep. Heart monitors detect faint but regular cardiac rhythm. Respiratory equipment registers minimal but present breathing patterns. The Chen family was not dead. They were somehow suspended in a state between sleep and death, preserved perfectly in the desert sand for 8 years. Emma's grandmother collapsed when she heard the news. Her granddaughter and son-in-law were alive, but in a condition that medical science couldn't explain or treat. The bodies were carefully transported to a specialized medical facility in Las Vegas. News of the desert sleepers spread globally. Scientists, doctors, and researchers from around the world requested access to study this impossible case. Religious leaders claimed it was a miracle. Skeptics demanded proof of an elaborate hoax. Conspiracy theorists suggested government cover-ups and alien involvement. But the medical evidence was undeniable. David and Emma Chen were alive in a way that challenged everything we understand about human biology. Attempts to wake them proved unsuccessful. Every medical intervention failed. They remained in their peaceful, suspended state, seemingly unaware of the world around them, yet somehow still connected to life. The note found in Emma's backpack gained new significance. "We're safe. We're waiting." The stars showed us the way. What had Emma seen in those desert stars the night they disappeared? What force or phenomenon had taken them from their campsite and placed them in this impossible state of preservation? Dr. Robert Hayes, a quantum physicist consulted on the case, proposed a theory that sounded like science fiction. "We may be looking at a temporal displacement event," he suggested. "Some unknown phenomenon that removed them from our normal timeline and preserved them in a parallel state." The investigation revealed more strange details. Soil analysis around their burial site showed elevated levels of rare earth elements not normally found in desert sand. Electromagnetic readings in the area registered unusual fluctuations that continued months after the discovery. Local Native American tribes shared stories passed down through generations about this particular area of the desert. They spoke of places where time moves differently, where the spirits of the lost wait between worlds. They called it the Dreaming Ground. Weather records from March 16, 2016, showed unusual atmospheric conditions that night. Multiple witnesses reported seeing strange lights in the desert sky, lights that didn't match any known aircraft or natural phenomena. Emma's homework, still perfectly preserved, became a crucial piece of evidence. The math problems she'd completed showed work that exceeded her grade level by several years. The calculations seemed to follow patterns that resembled astronomical coordinates. In the margins of her homework, investigators found tiny drawings that hadn't been noticed initially. When magnified, these drawings appeared to be star charts, incredibly accurate representations of the constellation positions on the night of March 16, 2016. How could a 7-year-old girl create astronomical charts with professional-level accuracy? The mystery deepened when linguists analyzed the note Emma had supposedly written. The handwriting was definitely hers, but the phrasing and vocabulary seemed beyond her developmental level. "The stars showed us the way" was written in a grammatical structure that suggested adult composition. Security footage from the medical facility captured something extraordinary on November 3, 2024. At exactly 11:43 p.m., the same time David's watch had stopped 8 years earlier, both patients showed increased brain activity simultaneously. For 17 minutes, their vital signs spiked to normal waking levels. Heart rates increased, brain waves showed full consciousness patterns, and respiratory rates normalized. Then, at exactly 12 a.m., they returned to their suspended state. This cycle began repeating every night at the same time. For 17 minutes each evening, David and Emma appeared to be fully conscious, though they remained physically motionless and unresponsive to external stimuli. During these nightly episodes, sensitive audio equipment detected something incredible. Both patients appeared to be speaking, though no sound was audible to the human ear. When the recordings were analyzed and amplified, researchers discovered they were having a conversation. Emma's voice, filtered through audio enhancement, could be heard saying, "Daddy, when can we go home?" David's response, "Soon, sweetheart. We're waiting for the right time." These conversations continued each night, always lasting exactly 17 minutes, always ending with Emma asking about going home and David promising they would return soon. The medical team made a breakthrough on December 15, 2024. Dr. Foster discovered that the nightly conscious episodes corresponded with specific celestial events. When certain constellations reached particular positions in the night sky, David and Emma's consciousness briefly returned. This led to an astronomical investigation of the March 16, 2016 disappearance date. Researchers found that night featured a rare celestial alignment that occurs only once every 847 years. Mars, Venus, and Jupiter had formed a perfect triangle in the desert sky, while the constellation Orion reached its highest point at exactly 11:43 p.m. The same alignment was mathematically predicted to occur again on March 16, 2025. Almost exactly 9 years after the original disappearance. Emma's grandmother, now 78 years old but determined to understand what happened to her family, made a request that surprised everyone. She wanted to return to the original campsite on March 16, 2025, during the celestial alignment. Emma loved the stars. She told reporters, if the stars took them away, maybe the stars will bring them home. Medical teams were skeptical, but agreed to transport David and Emma to the desert site for the alignment date. Specialized equipment would monitor their condition while attempting to recreate the circumstances of their original disappearance. As March 16, 2025 approached, global attention focused on the Mojave Desert. Scientists, reporters, and curious onlookers gathered at the remote location where this impossible story began. The night sky was perfectly clear. The celestial alignment began forming at sunset, reaching its peak configuration at 11:43 p.m., exactly as it had 9 years earlier. David and Emma were positioned at their original campsite, surrounded by medical equipment and monitoring devices. Their tent was set up in the exact location where they had spent their last normal night together. At 11:30 p.m., their vital signs began changing. Heart rates increased, brain activity spiked, and for the first time in 8 years, their eyes began to flutter as if they were naturally waking up. At 11:43 p.m., as the celestial alignment reached its perfect configuration, something extraordinary happened. David Chen opened his eyes. Emma stirred in her sleep, then slowly sat up, looking around with the confused expression of a child waking from a long nap. "Daddy?" she whispered, her voice clear and strong after years of silence. "Did we oversleep? I had the strangest dream about flying through the stars." David sat up, his eyes focusing on his daughter, then on the crowd of people surrounding them. His watch, which had been stopped for 8 years, suddenly began ticking again. "Emma," he said softly, pulling his daughter close, "I think we've been away for a while." The reunion was broadcast live around the world. Father and daughter, preserved impossibly in desert sand for 8 years, had simply awakened as if from a normal night's sleep. But their return raised new questions. David and Emma had no memory of the 8 years that had passed. To them, it was still March 17, 2016. Emma asked about finishing her homework, worried she would be late for school. Medical examinations showed they were in perfect health, better than perfect actually. 8 years of aging had somehow been reversed. David's chronic back pain from his office job was gone. Emma's mild asthma, which had required daily medication, had completely disappeared. When asked about their experience, neither father nor daughter could provide clear answers. Emma spoke of dreaming about flying through space, of seeing Earth from far away, of meeting star people who were kind and gentle. David's memories were similar but more fragmented. He recalled feeling no fear, only a sense of profound peace. He remembered holding Emma's hand as they traveled through what he could only describe as rivers of light between stars. The note found in Emma's backpack took on new meaning. "We're safe. We're waiting. The stars showed us the way." Emma had somehow written this note while in her suspended state, leaving a message that her family would eventually be reunited. The pink backpack, which had led to their discovery, remained in FBI custody as evidence. But Emma was allowed to see it once during her recovery. When she touched it, she smiled and said, "I remember burying this. The star people said someone would find it when it was time for us to come home." No 7-year-old child should have memories of burying her own backpack 6 feet underground. Yet Emma's statement was made with complete innocence and certainty. Scientists continued studying soil samples, electromagnetic readings, and atmospheric data from the site. The area showed ongoing anomalies that defied explanation. Some researchers theorized about dimensional portals, temporal rifts, or extraterrestrial intervention. The Chen family story became the most documented case of unexplained human disappearance and return in modern history. Medical journals published papers about their impossible preservation. Astronomical societies debated the significance of the celestial alignment. Religious leaders claimed the case proved the existence of divine intervention. Scientists argued for unknown natural phenomena. The debate continues today. But for David and Emma Chen, the most important thing was being together again. Emma returned to school, now technically 8 years behind her classmates, but somehow possessing knowledge and wisdom that seemed beyond her years. Her teachers noted that her understanding of mathematics and astronomy was remarkably advanced. David struggled to adjust to a world that had moved forward without him. Technology had advanced. His old job no longer existed, and friends had aged while he remained frozen in time. Yet both father and daughter expressed gratitude for their experience. They spoke of feeling connected to something larger than themselves, of understanding that consciousness exists in ways science is only beginning to explore. Emma's homework from that night in 2016 was finally turned in, 8 years late but perfectly preserved. Her teacher, now retired but called back for this unique situation, gave it an A+ with a note, "Better late than never. Welcome home." The original campsite in the Mojave Desert has become an unofficial pilgrimage destination. People from around the world visit the spot where the impossible happened, hoping to understand the mystery of time, consciousness, and our place in the universe. Warning signs have been posted advising visitors not to camp overnight during celestial alignments. No one knows if the phenomenon that took the Chen family might repeat itself. Emma's grandmother, now reunited with her family, keeps both pink backpacks in a place of honor in her home. One backpack represents the 8 years of loss and searching. The other represents the miracle of return and the mysteries that still surround us. The Chen case remains officially unsolved. The FBI continues to investigate, but their findings only deepen the mystery. Every scientific explanation raises new questions. Every theory is contradicted by impossible evidence. Some details about the case remain classified. Government agencies cite national security concerns about releasing information that might cause public panic or reveal unknown phenomena that could be weaponized. But the core truth remains undeniable. David and Emma Chen disappeared from our reality for 8 years and returned fundamentally unchanged by time's passage. Their story challenges our understanding of life, death, time, and consciousness. It suggests that reality might be far more complex and mysterious than we imagine. Emma, now technically 15 years old but still possessing the mind and body of her 7-year-old self, continues to have vivid dreams about space travel. She draws pictures of star systems that match no known astronomical charts, yet her details are mathematically precise. David has started working with researchers, hoping his memories might provide clues to understanding what happened. Though his recollections are fragmented, he consistently describes a sense of traveling vast distances while feeling completely safe and protected. The pink backpack that started this incredible journey back into our world sits in an evidence locker, still defying scientific explanation. Tests continue to show that its contents exist in a temporal state that shouldn't be possible. And every night at 11:43 p.m., if you visit the original campsite in the Mojave Desert, some witnesses claim you can hear faint voices carried on the desert wind. Emma's laughter echoing across the sand dunes. David's gentle voice telling bedtime stories under the stars. The desert keeps its secrets, but sometimes, just sometimes, it gives them back. Emma's pink backpack, found buried 6 feet deep in desert sand, led us to the most extraordinary reunion in human history. But it also left us with questions that may never be answered. How many other families might be waiting in places between worlds? How many more impossible stories are buried beneath the sands of time? The next time you're camping under a star-filled sky, remember the Chen family. Remember that our universe holds mysteries we're only beginning to understand. And if you see lights in the sky that don't belong to any known aircraft, if you hear voices carried on the wind that seem to come from everywhere and nowhere, maybe, just maybe, you're witnessing the next chapter of a story that's far from over. But there's more to this story that authorities have kept hidden from the public. Details that would make the Chen family's return seem almost ordinary compared to what investigators discovered afterward. 3 weeks after David and Emma's miraculous awakening, something happened that changed everything we thought we knew about their case. Dr. Amanda Foster was reviewing medical records when she noticed an impossible pattern. Emma's blood work showed cellular structures that didn't exist in 2016. Her DNA contained sequences that matched no known human genetic markers. Yet these weren't mutations or abnormalities. They were improvements. Emma's immune system had been enhanced beyond normal human capability. Her brain showed neural pathways that typically develop only after decades of learning and experience. Most remarkably, her cells showed signs of advanced longevity, as if aging had been not just paused, but reversed at the molecular level. David exhibited similar enhancements, though less pronounced than his daughters. His cardiovascular system functioned like that of an Olympic athlete. His reflexes had improved dramatically. Brain scans revealed increased activity in areas associated with spatial reasoning and mathematical processing. But these discoveries were nothing compared to what happened on April 3rd, 2025. Emma was playing in her grandmother's backyard when she suddenly stopped, tilted her head as if listening to something, and began speaking in a language no one recognized. The words flowed naturally from her lips, as if she'd spoken this language all her life. Dr. Sarah Collins, a linguist from UCLA, was called in to analyze recordings of Emma's speech. Her preliminary findings were disturbing. The language structure is incredibly complex, Dr. Collins reported. It incorporates mathematical principles into grammatical rules in ways that suggest a civilization far more advanced than our own. The syntax follows patterns that would take decades to master, yet this 7-year-old speaks it fluently. When researchers played the recordings to Emma, she seemed surprised. She had no memory of speaking anything other than English, yet when they played specific phrases, her eyes would light up with recognition. "That means safe journey," she would say. Or, "That's how you say thank you for the gift of time." How could a child translate a language she didn't remember learning? David began experiencing his own changes. He started having vivid dreams that felt more like memories. In these dreams, he recalled detailed conversations with beings of pure light who explained concepts about reality that his waking mind couldn't fully grasp. These weren't typical dreams. David could recall every word, every image, every sensation with perfect clarity. He began sketching the beings he remembered, creating detailed drawings of creatures that seemed to be made of condensed starlight. Independent artists who saw David's sketches were struck by their similarity to ancient cave paintings found in remote locations around the world. Indigenous cultures from Australia, North America, and Africa had depicted nearly identical beings in their oldest spiritual artwork. Were David's drawings memories of actual encounters, or was he somehow accessing ancient human collective memory? The investigation took another dramatic turn when Emma began predicting astronomical events with impossible accuracy. She would casually mention that a meteor would be visible the following Tuesday, or that the aurora borealis would appear unusually far south on specific dates. Every prediction came true. When asked how she knew these things, Emma would shrug and say, "The star people told me when we were traveling." But the most significant discovery came when researchers decided to test Emma's claims about burial site knowledge. If she truly remembered burying her backpack, perhaps she could locate other items. In May 2025, Emma led a team of archaeologists to 3 different locations in the Mojave Desert. At each spot, she pointed to seemingly random patches of sand and said, "Dig here." The first site yielded a camping stove buried 4 feet deep. the stove from their original 2016 trip that had never been found. The metal showed no signs of corrosion despite 8 years underground. The second site revealed something that shouldn't have existed, a photograph of David and Emma taken during their missing years, showing them standing in what appeared to be a crystalline landscape under an alien sky. Emma looked exactly the same as she did in 2016, but David appeared younger, more vibrant. The third site contained the most disturbing discovery. Buried 7 feet deep, investigators found a journal written in David's handwriting, but according to the dates in the journal, it had been written during their 8-year absence, time they supposedly spent in suspended animation. The journal entries described incredible experiences, traveling through space at impossible speeds, visiting worlds where consciousness existed without physical form, learning from beings who had mastered time itself. One entry, dated July 4, 2020, read, "Emma is adapting better than I am. The Guardians say children's minds are more flexible, more accepting of infinite possibilities. They've been teaching her about the connections between all living things." The final entry was dated March 15, 2025, one day before their return. "Tomorrow, we go home. Emma is excited but also sad to leave. The Guardians have given us gifts, enhanced abilities that will help us bridge the gap between human understanding and cosmic reality." Handwriting analysis confirmed the journal was genuinely written by David Chen, yet David had no conscious memory of writing any of it. During their nightly conscious episodes at the medical facility, David and Emma's brain patterns synchronized not just with each other, but with electromagnetic frequencies detected in deep space. Radio telescopes picking up signals from distant galaxies showed matching wave patterns during the exact times when David and Emma experienced their 17-minute consciousness spikes. Were father and daughter still somehow connected to the beings who had taken them? On June 21, 2025, the summer solstice, Emma approached Dr. Foster with a serious expression unusual for a 7-year-old. "Dr. Foster," Emma said quietly, "the star people are coming back. They want to meet more humans. They say Earth is ready for the next step." When asked what she meant, Emma explained that her return had been a test. The Guardians, as she called them, wanted to see how humanity would react to proof that consciousness could exist beyond normal physical limitations. Starting in July 2025, reports began flooding in from around the world. Astronomers detected artificial structures orbiting distant planets. The most startling discovery came when telescopes detected a formation of objects moving toward our solar system at impossible velocities. Emma seemed unsurprised by these developments. "They promised they would come," she said simply. "They want to help humans learn about the bigger universe." But perhaps the most important revelation came when Emma was asked about the pink backpack that had led to their discovery. "I didn't bury it," Emma admitted quietly. "The Guardians did. They said it was a seed." When researchers asked what she meant, Emma explained that the backpack was meant to be found at exactly the right time, by exactly the right person, to begin humanity's preparation for contact. "Everything that happened was planned," Emma said. "Daddy and I were chosen to be the first bridge between humans and star people. But we won't be the last." The pink backpack, analyzed again with this new understanding, revealed microscopic engravings on the zipper pulls that hadn't been noticed before. The engravings showed star maps pointing to the exact location of the approaching vessels. As the mysterious objects continued their approach toward Earth, Emma served as humanity's translator, helping officials understand the visitors' peaceful intentions. "They're not coming to take over," she explained. "They're coming to invite us to join something wonderful. But first, Humans have to stop being afraid of things they don't understand. The story of David and Emma Chen, which began with a simple camping trip and a pink backpack buried in desert sand, had become humanity's introduction to a universe far more complex and beautiful than anyone had imagined. The pink backpack that had led investigators to the impossible discovery was now revealed as the first piece of evidence that Earth was not alone in the universe. The desert had given up its secrets, but those secrets were just the beginning of humanity's greatest adventure.